Brian Lewis, how we doing, man?
Great.
Dude,
How are you?
I'm good. So we're at G-Son Studios.
That's right.
You're from Seattle. That's where I was born. I only lived there till I was 5.
I wouldn't say I became a Seattleite until I was 15. So you're an earlier Northwester than
If anything,
myself.
I paved the way for you.
You did.
I
You
like
made it
to
possible
think.
for me to get there. I got into photography shooting local rappers.
Do you remember what camera you were using?
I got a Canon 5D.
Yeah, I feel like that was such a go-to cam back
And,
then.
a lot of tension between Canon and Nikon
I was a Nikon
users.
guy.
Yes,
so,
well.
Black Magic now.
Okay, that's cool.
You've been working a lot with Jonah, formerly of Why Don't We?
Yeah.
Is it Jonah Murray?
Murray.
Murray, okay.
Yeah.
So talented.
French.
Oh,
For me leaving the world of macklemore, I largely disappeared on purpose. And it took time to start to try to answer, what do I want to do? What does it sound like? Where do I go? You're rebuilding.
What?
How do you, a creative person, stop a project and finally say it's at a point to release?
That's hard. It's a hard thing to do. I think the better you get at that, the better it goes. I think that is something that I'm still figuring out. I still want to work faster. I still want to recognize in an honest way how much time is wasted on shit that doesn't matter.
And no one will notice.
Well, it's not even no one will notice. It's like, it's more like stuff that you personally are hung up on, that you put maybe more personal value on than is actually like true to the production or the song itself. So I'm always re-asking kind of that question of, I want to make really good stuff and I want to make a lot of it, and I don't want to get, held up for the wrong reasons, sitting on a bunch of tracks and not putting them out. And so I do think that the EP earlier this year was like a very healthy and good example of put a deadline on the calendar and meet it, for better or worse. I would say to do that in terms of like the process of doing it, I think knowing how to finish the best that you can is not necessarily obvious. In music, it's, there's different people with all sorts of different arrangements. You got artists that have very little to do with it, and there's 5,000 different producers on the project or whatever. But in the case of this Jonah project, it was just kind of me. And so for me, it was going like, okay, arrangement, mix, all of these kind of final steps to both technically and musically finish something. A lot for me of this year was actually poking at some of that stuff and going, what in my workflow is slows me down. And a big thing for me was the fear of mixing myself. Like I mixed The Heist, and then I haven't mixed anything since.
Wow, and I didn't realize you'd mix that. So then do you mix and master like the Jonah stuff?
I don't master.
Okay, but you mixed it.
But no, I didn't mix the EP, but I mixed Slow Motion, and I'm going to mix the rest of the EP.
Everyone I know runs at the speed of light. Can't we just have some fun? Everyone's slow motion. Everyone's slow motion.
Good for you, by the way, because sometimes when you're not as confident in something, you hold off on doing it, but just diving in and saying, this is one thing I need to figure out how to do and just get comfortable with.
Yeah.
You're doing that.
Yeah, 100%. I think like when I say like the fear of mixing, it's the fact that I know there's several people I can send something to that have a lot more practice specifically with mixing, specifically other people's stuff. And that's what they do professionally. And there's a variety of stuff that they're going to do technically superior or faster or easier or with different techniques that I'm going to use or whatever. But the fear piece was a lot more just quintessential kind of creator bullshit, which is like being happy enough with what I've made and the mixing choices that I've made that it's actually what I want, even if it comes with aspects of it that are gonna be not as polished or not, the downsides of whatever. It was kind of a decision for me this year to go, I'm gonna mix everything that I do. And that's going to speed up my workflow because I'm not navigating, well, what's the, how do I finish it? And then you're going back and forth, try to describe what you want to somebody else. And again, like I've worked with John Castelli a ton, who's amazing mixer, amazing friend of mine. And again, I know who is a savant in the field. But that's beside the point. The point is that, like, for me and my workflow to decisively be like, I'm going to mix these and that's how I'm going to do it, which means it's my responsibility, which means that there's no mystery left to it. And I also love my mixes. So great. You know what I mean? Like, you don't like it. Great.
But and I'm happy to hear that because I've always been a very one-man show with stuff. I've just always figured out if there's something that I can figure out, there's a YouTube video that'll show me how to do it, and then I'll figure it. But I love to do so much. I love filmmaking. I went to film school. I love interviewing.
You went to film school?
Yeah, I went to CSUN, Cal State Northridge, up in just up in the valley. Cool. And I love drawing. I love doing so many creative things that it can be overwhelming, and I can get burned out, or I can suddenly be focusing on this one, forgetting about that one. How do you balance not burning out between all these different creative avenues that you like, from producing to photography to whatever else you have going on?
It's a good question, and not one that I always get right. Certainly not. I remember when I was going back to the beginning of this conversation, when I was really doing photography, I was also doing different graphic design stuff. I was doing album art, and particularly back then, more people on a local level pressing jewel cases and different versions, digipacks, different versions of CDs, and or vinyl or whatever. And I always had this like underlying sense that I could hit a point in music of either like exhaustion or it's like your curiosity gets diluted a little bit because maybe you're repeating too much of the same thing over and over again or whatever. And I always found a lot of like comfort in switching over to kind of the other side of the fence. And I think in the macklemore world, that was what I loved about everything that came with being an independent entity, and that coming with a bunch of the obvious responsibilities, album art, merchandise, and all that type of stuff. But then the less sexy stuff like Facebook banners and advertising banners and all of the like the little things that are like deliverables to really be taking it on yourself. And I loved in that space that I similarly got to move from music over to kind of creative on the other side. Music videos, ground zero for that as well. But now, not to say that that's not something I'm doing now, because I am. This year I would say I learned Illustrator in a way that I didn't know.
I just started learning Illustrator 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I want to do some little merch design things that I have an idea for, so I've started using Illustrator. Are you having a good time with it?
I love it.
They have an
I
iPad
really love
version
it.
for it that I've been seeing if it can pull off what I need.
Yeah.
But we'll find out. You're liking it though?
Yeah. Well, I would say I like misused Photoshop for as long as I could.
I know so many wrong ways to do things on Photoshop.
Yes, exactly. So an Illustrator, it's like just enough different of an interface that, it's not necessarily intuitive right at first if all you know is Photoshop, but I've loved it. Now I'm just like, I would never try to do some of this stuff in Photoshop again.
Which I can't wait to get to that point because I know I'm using Photoshop for stuff that I need to be using Illustrator for. What are you doing on Illustrator?
I have been doing a lot. Like there's a lot that I'm pushing for in 2025 that would be essentially different kind of brands or projects, enough so that like fonts, colors, visual identity, that type of stuff is probably where I waste the most time in Illustrator. I'm going like kind of exploring the style, the look, the feel of these different projects and things that I'm starting to pursue in 2025. And then the Jonah space that we've started to kind of build a team around the visual side of his stuff as well. And so that's been more reasons to open up Illustrator. But what I would actually say, if I was trying to answer that question now of like, how do you balance between the different stuff? For me, it more often feels right now like, and I think a lot of artists and creators feel this way now. I feel like I have like creativity on one side, and that would be like me at my best is like making a beat or working on a song, and I have a lot of time and I have very little pressure, and other than maybe like the pressure of time or something, like to get something done, but not like pressure like this has to be great or something like that. But Jason always calls it like, being in like the sandbox or being in kind of that space where you can fiddle, right? Where you're
just have fun.
Yeah, fiddle's the best word. Where it's like you have all these different tools, you have all these different things that you can actually just, with quite a bit of freedom and a little bit of, at least the feeling of aimlessness, the feeling of the freedom to aim in the direction that you kind of are feeling at the time. That's the best way I would describe being like really creatively healthy, active, and especially with music, that's what would keep me coming back and just putting in a lot of time and making a lot of stuff.
Hey everybody, Nick Major here with the Spout Podcast. I hope you are enjoying this week's latest episode, but let's quickly talk to you about your health and if weight loss has been a challenge for you, because Hers is an affordable solution that might be exactly what you need. Hers provides personalized weight loss plans designated to fit your needs. They offer GLP-1 weekly injections with the same active ingredients as Ozempic and Wegovy, as well as oral medication options. You'll be connected with a licensed medical provider who's going to create a customized plan for you. If prescribed, the program includes the medication, ongoing support, and medical care at no additional cost. And the good news, Hers weight loss plans are affordable, starting at just $199 a month for compounded GLP-1 injections when you sign up for a 12-month prepaid subscription. And there are no hidden fees or memberships. Free shipping right to your door, personalized care for you. So visit forhers.com/spout to get your free start online today. Again, that is forhers, forhers.com/spout, SPOUT. Hers weight loss isn't available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Restrictions apply. Ozempic and Wegovy are not compounded. Let's get back to the episode.
The other side I would say is actually entrepreneurship. Or entrepreneurship, whatever it would be. And that and I put on that side everything else, which is like I have a very clean inbox. I have
Oh my gosh, that is so. I'm jealous.
Yeah, it's inboxes and calendars and feeling like you are being productive in the non-creative space, feeling like you have a 5-year plan, feeling like you have a lot of the logistics and the deadlines and the structure and the step 2 leads to step 3A, and then that goes to, like the side of it that's focused on a lot of that stuff you've already described, the socials, podcasting, like all the things that are going to offer success in the creative stuff that you're working on, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, most of the time, when I try to bounce between those two things in a given day, they both suffer. And I'll have stretches that the kind of really non-creative, but still like energized and thinking creatively about all of it, but much more, focused and looking at the future type of thinking. Like I'll get into chunks that that's where I'm operating from, and I will make almost nothing in that time period.
But it's a good moment of time.
Until you kind of go like, when you're pretending that you're creatively active or healthy, it reminds me of like when you have, 35 tabs open in Chrome or something, and you're moving between all these different things. It's almost like the feeling of multitasking productivity, which I think is bullshit. You know what I mean? Where it's like real productivity is usually sitting with the thing that is actually. Yes, it's like it's not.
In the moment you let it grow, it just gets out of hand. The moment you start to take on, which I'm so guilty of.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I think balancing between those two, I feel like lately I've just been like accepting how much they don't go together, and how much like to be in the creative space, I actually have to like not allow those things to invade or sit side by side too closely with it. It's almost like I have to get closer to like the feeling of like I have no job. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But we're out in LA now. You've been here for 5 years coming up, I guess. So what are you going to accomplish out here in LA that you haven't done yet? Is there stuff you want to try? I know. Did you do the Greatest Show on the Greatest Showman? You were a part of that track?
I did.
So tell me, do you want to go where it's covered in all the color lights, where the runaways are running the night, impossible come true, it's taking over you. Oh, this is the greatest show.
Which is insane. So much of your stuff has like a cinematic vibe to it. That's how I felt like with The Heist. It just felt like such a cinematic album. I was working at Hot Topic when that came out, and we blasted the hell out of that back in 2012. That. But I hear The Greatest Show. That sounded so cinematic. Obviously, it was a musical. And then you did like a couple years ago, like a little intro for like a podcast, like the music. It was like a crime podcast. This kind of
Nardwuar right now.
Western intro. Well, you killed it with that, and
Thanks.
It made me think, just creatively, sound design wise, there's got to be stuff in the movie world that you're interested in. What are you doing out in LA, or what are some goals you'd like to accomplish that you have yet creatively?
I am working on a movie musical with Jason. I keep doing this because he's on the other side of this wall. Been working on a movie musical that I can't say anything about.
So we'll leave that there, but say what else?
But writing all of the music for that, and before that, the story. I'm very excited about it. We started it before we were working with Jonah, and are kind of diving back into it in 2025. So in that movie space, I'm gonna put a lot of focus on that, and I'm stoked about that. And then more production stuff, more music production stuff, certainly with Jonah going into 2025, as well as elsewhere. I work with Brian Wall a lot, who's been kind of a friend, but also a lot of co-production, a lot of us working together musically, probably the closest that I have to like a bandmate. And we're diving into a lot next year. And then I'm building a recording studio here. And I have a recording studio up in Washington State. And I'm working throughout 2025 to make them more public and to have them be spaces that I can invite people into.
Oh, that's sick.
So that's kind of in the background, but I'm trying to kind of connect the dots between all of these different things.
Mm-hmm. And there's a middle ground. There's somewhere that's awesome. And do you ever sing?
Just to try to explain a melody. This is funny. I actually have a buddy who has legitimate perfect pitch, and I said, "Hey, when I'm singing, am I usually kind of sharp or am I usually flat?"
And he said yes.
And he said, "You're usually pretty confident."
Which is a good answer.
So I sing a lot, but usually like to the detriment of the people I'm around.
So it's one skill that did you just never hone in on it?
It's just not in my family. I love singing. I absolutely believe that singing and dancing are the closest thing to kind of like walking and running, and like you cannot deny the joy when you feel perfectly comfortable singing to sing. And I would say in the last 10 years, the amount of time that I'm just singing in the car or the shower in private has expanded to public spaces more than others care for. But I don't care.
Would you ever record and sing a song?
Absolutely.
Oh,
now,
do it.
But
Come
I
on.
wouldn't do it like I don't think I would have said that I would have done that 5 years ago. I also think here's the tough thing about being a producer. I would listen to it back and go like, no one wants to hear this. You know what I mean? Like I think I would have a good, honest read on it. But I'm definitely at the point that I don't care about sounding bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't have there's no ego tied to my singing or much at this point.
What's one thing you're particularly like so stoked, proud about of your career that you're like, dang, I can't believe this happened? Or a couple, if there's a few that are just so...
My favorite career things. I would say the Downtown music video.
It's a hell of a deal, I'm headed downtown. Cruising through the alley, tiptoeing in the street like ballet.
Was shot in my hometown of Spokane. And it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's just one of my favorite things that I've been a part of. I would say as a song, Can't Hold Us, maybe.
Yeah.
And then we keep marching.
Can we go back? This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us.
I just never would have had any clue the environments that it works well for and all the places that it would end up being. And so it's really special to me in that sense. More recently, I would say that podcast intro for The Deck, in the beginning of COVID, was getting super addicted to
I can't wait to see what the next word is. It could be any word. What were you getting addicted to?
true crime podcasts.
Bro,
And-
every night of my life I watch true
Exactly.
crime.
Which is very strange to fall asleep listening to murders and etc.
He burst through the window.
Exactly. Okay. And but Crime Junkie then.
Yeah, of course.
So I really liked Crime Junkie because it was just this. When I liked the format, I like Ashley and Britt, and I just listened to a lot of true crime, and I loved the Crime Junkie theme. I thought it was just fire. I would actually like not skip it. I would just like listen to it. And so I actually just hit her up. I hit up Ashley Flowers.
Oh, you hit them up?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I was like, I've never done anything like this, but I would love to do a theme if you guys are doing anything. And so they were still working on the deck and invited me to try to do one. And so, you know, the deck of cards,
and I love it because the deck of cards is pretty much the percussion of the music, which makes it so fun because it's just so westerny and it was great.
And I really liked that piece of music a lot. So anyways, that was just like so random, but I really liked how it turned out and the fact that they gave me the opportunity. Right now, I would say like Jonah has certainly been an incredible collaboration for me to be making music a lot.
I'll run right through a red light to stop you from leaving. I wish I knew it that night, twilight, I'm bleeding.
Because we've written so much together. I think a lot of the songs that him, me, Jason have made are gonna land in different places as 2025 goes on. I'm really proud of my collaboration with him because it was the first time in a while that I had gotten really excited and energized and inspired for like a project versus like Greatest Showman. Kesha.
You brought the flames and you put me through hell. I had to learn how to fight for myself.
Dan and Shay.
There's a couple billion people in the world and a million other places we could be, but you're here with me.
Different things where you're kind of jumping into somebody else's big project and doing something awesome. That's really cool. But most of my musical career has been, you know, being in the trenches with another person, a group of people for the long haul of trying to create the whole picture with all of the ingredients that go into it. And so I would say that working with Jonah has certainly been a highlight for me because it's reignited what I love about music, which is largely to do with people and largely to do with, I don't know, for me, with the process as much as just the result of something working or whatever.
That's awesome, and I'm glad to hear you're out here now following all this fun stuff. So I started doing interviews back in 2013, and one of my first ever interviews was with Mary Lambert, which was a big deal for me because I was like, oh my God, I've been listening to you on Hot Topic. I was still at Hot Topic at the time. Everyone has been hearing you lately on the radios, on the internet, with your Macklemore and Ryan Lewis.
They were looking for someone to write the hook. I think I was sort of a last resort, actually. And that can change. Even if I tried.
Then 2 years ago, I chatted with Macklemore at the bathroom at the SoFi Stadium when he was there with Imagine Dragons.
Okay.
Welcome to Bathroom Interviews.
This is dope.
Take a seat, pop a squat. Then right around that same time, I also chatted with Jordan, a.k.a. Windsor. The reason why I was like, okay, I got to get this guy into chat was I chatted with Macklemore. One of the new tracks that you put out is Maniac.
Yes.
I could give a damn. You're a maniac. And you're talking like a killer, got me on my back.
Who you did a couple tracks with. We did Maniac and next year? Yeah, next year was the other song.
In for the next year, 'cause next year's gonna be better than next year's gonna be better than this year. Next year's gonna be better than this.
So I'm so happy to have finally had the chance to talk with you because I feel like so many people in your circle I've chatted with, and this was great. I appreciate you having me at the G-Sound Studios today and kind of filling me in on everything you're working on, and it was a great conversation. So thanks for talking,
Great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.